Hello and welcome! First of all, happy Halloween! I know it was yesterday, but it is my favorite holiday, so I do want to take some time to acknowledge it. Hope you guys had a great time with your families and friends and that you enjoyed the day and everyone went home safe. It certainly is a welcome change of pace after being in lockdown for such a long time. So, happy Halloween! Today we're going to be talking about Age of Empires 4. Now, Age of Empires is an RTS series that dates back all the way to 1997. Now, somehow, I'm one of these assholes that missed it back in its day. I didn't play 1 or 2, but I did play 3, the definitive edition. I honestly don't know how I missed it, but I think it was because I was playing StarCraft, Civilization, and Command & Conquer. I was huge into Command & Conquer for a long time. Man, I missed Command & Conquer. Damn you, EA, for shutting down Westwood Studios. But that's a story for another day. So today we're talking about Age of Empires 4, and here's something great about Age of Empires 4. You get to break down the shitty wall with the Mongols.
Mongolian? What the hell Mongolian doing here? Hey, fuck you, Mongolian! Don't you break down my wall!
Anyway, somehow I missed Age of Empires 1 and 2, but I'm here now. So what do I have to say about Age of Empires 4? Let's stick around and find out. Age of Empires 4 is an RTS game developed by Relic Entertainment and World's Edge, and published by Xbox Game Studios. You get 3 options: play, community, learn, and hopefully coming soon, mods. In the play option, you have a choice between single player and multiplayer. In multiplayer, you can play against the AI or versus other people, and from there you can choose how many players will be in the game. You can do quick matches or set up a custom game and enable which options you prefer. You can designate the win conditions, the start conditions, and which map will be chosen. As of right now, there are no custom maps. That's another thing that I hope will be coming soon, as the water maps are pretty limited right now. The naval combat is pretty fun to engage in, so I hope there are a lot more water maps which promote it. Each map condition can be changed, and the sizes range from gigantic to micro. The starting locations can also be changed, and so can the biome, which is merely aesthetic. There's also a neat feature called Map Seed, which allows you to recreate the same map over and over again, if you and your friends find something that you really enjoy. The size of the map will dictate how many players can participate, of course. You also have the option of public or private matches. I also like the idea of observing the matches. This is a neat little mode that allows you to, observe. It can be good for new players looking for ideas and strategies to employ if they're facing constant ass-kickings. The community tab is just a forum essentially with updates to the game news, walkthrough links, etc. There's also a learn tab which allows you to view information on each civilization, their tech trees, their strengths, the difficulty of playing with them, etc. You'll also find hotkey guides and tutorial links here as well. I'd recommend this for players looking to get into multiplayer. I'd also recommend doing skirmishes under a variety of situations before jumping into multiplayer as well. Single player. There's a lot to talk about here. There's a variety of game modes. Let's talk about skirmish mode first. In skirmish mode, you'll face off against an AI-controlled opponent, or you can play freely on your own to get the hang of how the game works without the harassment of an enemy. This is a great way to get started if you have little Age of Empires experience, or RTS experience in general. The setup options are the same as we discussed previously in the multiplayer, so I won't get into that. Also within the skirmish mode there are presets, a kind of quick way to get started and loaded into a match against an AI opponent, with each having different victory conditions and starting options. The Art of War tab can be incredibly useful as it teaches you the core fundamentals of the game, and it teaches you how to employ different strategies to produce and ensure a victory. This will cover early economy, late economy, combat and siege situations as well. Onto the campaign, which is where I think this game is really awesome. The campaigns consist of 4 scenarios, each of which contain different challenges and civilizations. Each tree of missions will pit you against AI opponents, and different situations that each civilization faced historically. Also, how those situations ended up. You'll go through the historical timeline of each civilization, each with their own unique challenges and enemies to face. Each scenario will have a theme. Chivalry, which is the theme of the English laying siege to the French capital of Paris, or the Mongols' Shock and Awe campaign, which is essentially regional domination through force of arms. I've played about 5 missions from each campaign, and I have to say that they're all very well done and they're a ton of fun. They can also be incredibly challenging, even only on the intermediate difficulty. They require split-second decision-making and a firm knowledge of the tactics in the game to complete. Now, some may love this and some may hate this, but each historical chapter is told via cutscenes. These can be skipped, which is great, but I absolutely loved watching these. They're beautifully done in 4K, and it adds a very History Channel feel to them, which I love. The History Channel before it came trash reality TV and pawn and picker shows. There are 4 campaigns as of right now to choose from, and each offer a great and incredibly exciting set of scenarios. I love these far more than I liked the ones in Age of Empires 3. I felt they were far more engaging and challenging here, and the instances themselves were more interesting. The specific one I loved beside all the Mongols ones is the France in Chaos scenario. In this scenario, you defend Paris and are completely encircled by the surrounding English. It's incredibly challenging and rewarding when you win, as it is a hard-fought battle the whole scenario. After successful completion of each scenario, you'll be rewarded with unlockable content in the form of historical videos. I like this idea, and the videos are really well done, and I actually learned a bit while playing, which I fully support. Some may like this, some may find it boring, but I really enjoy learning about battle tactics and cultures, so thumbs up from me here. You'll also gain experience, which as far as I can tell serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. So yeah, I don't know if this will in the future, but as of right now, experience is pointless. In whatever situation you're in, you'll be given objectives that need to be completed in order to achieve victory. You'll also be given optional objectives through each mission. This might entail you initially capturing a settlement and building up to conquer a nearby enemy, or it could be simply surviving. Whatever the given scenario is, it typically is challenging and fun, and I'm having a blast with them thus far. As stated before, each civilization has its own unique tech tree and their own unique qualities which are historically based. The Rus, for example, are skilled hunters, which allows them to build up a strong economy quickly, and they can gain steady income from hunting cabins and gaining gold from hunting animals. They bolster strong early game defenses to protect against an early crushing blow. They also get unique units like the Warrior Monk, which is a mounted healer which can be incredibly useful for players who choose to utilize a more mounted style of attack. Whichever civ you choose, you'll be given unique units, buildings, and abilities which require a firm understanding if one is to be successful against skilled opponents. Most civs follow the same basic structure, with the exception of the Mongols, which I'll cover later, but they still follow the core principles of settlement building. Build a town center, produce villagers who can hunt and gather resources, and then build up your settlement to produce better and better defenses and more elite units to protect your settlement or destroy another's. The given scenario will dictate how long you build up or how long you need to sustain yourself to achieve victory. Whichever method you choose to approach to achieve victory, whether it be destroying all the enemy landmarks, building or defending a wonder that's unique to your civilization, or by capturing sacred sites, understanding the economy and the resources in the game is crucial for your success, and there are many ways to go about doing this. On the water maps, for instance, there are trade routes. These allow you to build and establish trade routes which generate income indefinitely. Any resource that can be produced indefinitely is key to a long-term strategy, and guarding these trade ports and routes could mean victory or defeat. The naval combat is good, and there are a decent variety of upgrades and units. You can employ multiple strategies here to protect or steal the trade routes on the map. The units are responsive and act accordingly for the most part, but there really needs to be a patrol mode. This leads to massive micromanagement at all times, and with the insanely limited camera zoom levels, this can become really tedious. Naval units have multiple attacks and abilities, and they can also be very effective bombarding land targets though. You can also utilize fishing boats to generate food off your coasts. In the land combat, each unit you have will have weaknesses and strengths that you'll have to consider before putting them up against an enemy. Spearmen are slow moving and susceptible to archers, but extremely effective against cavalry, for example. You can group your units using control and the corresponding numeric keys for easier control. You can also use the mouse and shift click to select units and put them in control groups. Each group of units has hotkeys for their behaviors. A for attacks, S for stop moving, etc. You can also quickly move them into different formations that provide strategic benefits. Wedge formations for cavalry charges, and line formations for staggered formations to avoid projectiles? Nope. The projectiles, once fired, they always hit their mark. No, really. They home in on their targets. It's pretty ludicrous, but apparently they did this to avoid micromanagement of archers. I guess this was a constant complaint from players back in the day, so they implemented this system. I understand it, but the animations do seem odd because, well, I'll cover that in the graphics. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I do understand it. The only projectile issue I have is cannons and siege equipment. There should be friendly fire. I'd like to see this implemented because it becomes almost comical at points to fire a cannon and have it kill only the bad guys. I think it would make for more thoughtful employment of these units. Siege towers and rams are great in the game, and they are crucial to go up against stone wall defenses, as normal projectiles are rather useless against them. This I like, but the only issue I have with these is that they move so fast it's kind of ridiculous. A siege tower moves as fast as my units are running on the ground. Come on, man. That's like multiple tons of wood being pushed through the mud and it moves the same speed as a guy running on his feet. I'd like to see these slowed down. You get a cool variety of projectile siege equipment, from trebuchets to mangonels and cannons. Each one will be effective in their own ways against certain defenses. There's also a multitude of defenses you can employ, from simple palisades to a network of citadels. Some of the defensives have boiling oil upgrades, projectile upgrades, bonuses to your settlement productions, unit ability upgrades, all kinds of cool stuff to enhance your military. In the scenarios, you are given leaders that have unique abilities that can turn the tide of difficult battles. Or they can even affect production queues, like Ivan III, who can increase production speeds of nearby buildings for 15 seconds. One thing that's different from Age of Empires 3 is the home card system. Now, I'm a fan of this because I'd rather be relying on the land and the units themselves for my production, so I'm glad they got rid of the card system. Some people I'm sure will be against it, but I think it was the right choice here. The combat overall was really engaging and fun, and I'm really having a blast during the campaigns and the skirmishes. It's incredibly addicting and fun, and you can utilize so many different strategies here. It allows for endless replayability. One thing I really liked about facing off against the enemy is that the AI is pretty good in many respects. Even on intermediate difficulty, they will constantly press you and stress test your defenses and look for holes in your defense strategy. They also intelligently build their own defenses, but I never really noticed them manning their towers with archers or anything, so perhaps on the higher difficulty they would do that. The different varieties of abilities, siege equipment, and different strategies that you can employ leads to really epic battles, and it's a lot of fun. I also really love the addition of the Mongols. They have a very unique setup as they can pack up and move virtually all of their settlement structures. This can lead to a very interesting scenario when facing them in a multiplayer match. Their campaigns are also incredibly fun and interesting due to this aspect. They're definitely the most unique civilization added to the game, and it's a welcome addition. As of right now, there are 8 civilizations for you to choose from. The only thing that sucks is that you're limited to 200 units on the map, which I understand why, and I'll get to that in the technical issues. Now, the only technical issues that I really had was that the game pretty much explodes when you reach max unit level, which is 200, at least on the water maps. The game started stuttering horribly and it dropped to 5 frames per second. Hopefully this gets patched. Other than that, I had no FPS drops or stutter issues. Also, some of the animations are a little goofy. Arrows fire through walls, and the units move kinda wonky at times. They can get stuck on trees at points, and this can cause you to get stuck and lose units. This can become an issue, especially when utilizing hit and run tactics with the Mongols. One thing I wish you could do is set your units in patrol mode. I really don't understand why they removed this. It makes you have to micromanage things a lot more. Also, your villagers auto-attack. So, if they're outside the enemy gates, they just start auto-attacking an enemy and they always get killed. I wish there was a way to turn this off and put them in like a skirmish mode or something. I also wish there was an easier way to angle your formations. So like, rotating your entire archery line, for example, to face your enemy, instead of having to click. It just becomes tedious at times. Something else I think the game desperately needs is a higher zoom mode. You're always zoomed in, you're almost over the shoulder of your units. The zoom is basically nothing. You can't even zoom out at all, really. And apparently in the beta, it was even worse. This was the improved version. I wish you could zoom out. I feel like I'm constantly over the shoulder of my units and I'm constantly having to look at the minimap. I don't want to look at the minimap, I want to look at my whole settlement. So I wish they could implement some kind of a patch that allows you to zoom out more. Hopefully there will be a mod that will increase this. One thing in the naval combat that I'd like to see changed is the demolition ships. They have a crazy range. They can kill land units that are even on like the middle of the map sometimes. They have way too far of a range, and I could see this becoming a huge problem in multiplayer, just spamming the hell out of these things. The only crashes that I really had was during the autosave system. The save system initiates during combat and during the scenarios, and if you click anywhere on the screen, it can sometimes cause the game to crash. This is a constant issue because it autosaves all the time. The graphics in Age of Empires 4 is nothing to write home about here, really. I do personally like them, and I think it's more pleasing to look at than its predecessor, but it's really nothing special in 2021. Many will argue that they prefer the much more realistic graphics of 3, the definitive edition, but I rather like the art style more here in 4 than 3. Even though I typically like more realistic graphics, I like the art style here and the game just looks more pleasing to me. I do, however, wish you could zoom out more. I also think that the camera angle needs some adjustment features. The game is severely lacking in graphical options, however, though. There's just not very many things to choose from. The combat animations are fun and they're over the top. The weapons are also larger than they typically would be, but this makes it easier to identify your units. I think that the units need to be scaled better, however, as they are almost as tall as the buildings. The dramatic coloring provides a more stylized approach that some will argue against, but I personally like it, and I also think the UI is much more aesthetically pleasing. I like the color scheme that they've gone with in the menus. The idle animations are good, and the environmental effects are passable, but again, there's nothing to write home about. It's pretty average. Graphically, the game looks okay, and I like the stylized approach, but a lot of people are going to have issues with this, I'm sure. The music. Each track fits the battles nicely, and the music ramps up and thunders loudly when invaders attack. Some complained about the town bells when invaders are attacking, but I actually enjoyed it because the zoom sucks so bad you need the warning bells most of the time, otherwise you're blind to attacks. The sounds of the warriors and the battles in general sound great, and it's satisfying hearing your men cheer in victory as they win the day. I also really love the way the villagers' voices change as you enter eras. Each modern era, the villagers change the way that they speak. This is a nice touch, and it's something that Age of Empires does great. It keeps things historically accurate as much as possible within the confines of a video game. They do a pretty damn good job here. I love the way that the voice and the subtle changes happen throughout the eras. I also love the sounds of the stone cracking when you're laying siege to an enemy territory. The sound effects in general are just kick-ass. The arrows firing, the armor clashing, the horses, the environmental effects, all of the sounds in this game are absolutely top-notch. The maps. The maps are really well done, and they each provide unique challenges and obstacles for you to overcome. The only downfall is the limited number. There are only 17 maps, and of those 17, only 2 are water levels. I really hope created maps come soon because it's rather limited. The maps they have are really well done. I just wish there was more of them, and more maps that prompted you to utilize naval combat. And here we are, the final score and conclusion. Overall, despite some of its issues, I'm having an absolute blast playing Age of Empires 4. Fun is the ultimate goal of any video game for me, and how immersed I can become. Despite the cartoony graphics and the stuttering issues, the sometimes wonky animations, and the limited map availability, I'm still having fun. And that is the final predictor to me of whether or not I can recommend any game for someone to play. Is it fun? So is Age of Empires fun? Yes, it's a lot of fun, and I recommend it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for sticking around if you stuck with me to the end. Take care of yourselves and each other, and Happy Halloween!